Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today. We're just going to give it a few more seconds just to let some last minute registrants log in, and then we'll get started with the presentation. All right. Well, today's presentation is going to be focused on data center monitoring. And my name is Shannon Ryerson. I am the senior inside sales rep here at Hobo Data Loggers. I do specialize in data logger section and application support. My primary market is building performance monitoring. Just a few housekeeping notes about today's webinar. This webinar will run for roughly 30 minutes. We'll try to save about 10 minutes at the end to answer any additional questions. If you do have questions, feel free to type your questions into the questions section of the control panel. The webinar is being recorded, and a link to this recording will be sent in a follow-up email. So just a quick overview of the agenda for today. We are going to give a brief overview of Hobo products for remote and on-site data center monitoring. We'll discuss real-time notifications of temperature spikes with our HoboNet wireless sensor network. We'll also go over best practices for ensuring optimal conditions in server rooms, off-site storage, and backup environments. We'll also go over how monitoring supports uptime, compliance, and equipment longevity. And then lastly, we will discuss some important factors to consider when selecting data loggers, such as facility size, number of server racks, and sensor placement. So I just saw a couple slides just briefly going over data center history. Before we started building, or before people started building larger data centers, companies would typically rent out warehouse space for this equipment. A lot of times this was a shared server environment, so you could have multiple companies inside one warehouse or one space, and customers would use our data loggers to monitor their specific locations within these data centers. Now, as AI has become more prevalent in our life, this has had an effect on data center monitoring. More specifically, it requires more space and more power. More power typically equals hotter temperatures. So large hyperscale data centers house several hundreds of thousands of racks hosting servers. Modern AI servers significantly draw more power per rack compared to traditional servers, and this is what equates to generating more heat. One way to mitigate this is some of the older data centers have gone through renovations, which include advanced insulation, efficient HVAC systems, and reflective materials such as high reflective ceilings to help mitigate environmental impacts. So how can we ensure that your equipment is in compliance and running in optimal conditions? Well, that's where our data loggers come into play. And we're going to touch base on a few different options that we have for both standalone loggers and remote monitoring solutions. So the first option we're going to go over is one of our most common data loggers. It is the Hobo MX1101. It is a Bluetooth device that runs off of two AAA batteries. This is an economical data logger. We sell them for right around $159. They do monitor temperature, relative humidity, and dew point. These devices are less than 1 inch thick, and it allows you to verify that materials being transported to and from construction sites weren't damaged by improper storage or poor transit conditions. You can also use these for monitoring your server rooms as well. One nice thing about this device is that not only can you use it as a standalone device, which you simply just download a free app to your mobile device, you get within 100 feet line of sight range from the device, and you'll be able to connect to it to do your configuration, data offload, as well as view data in real time. This can also become part of a remote monitoring solution, and that would be incorporating our MX Gateway. So with the MX Gateway, it essentially gives you near real-time measurements to our Lycor cloud platform. You do have the ability to set remote alarms for each of the data loggers, and you can receive text messages, emails, or both, letting you know if a logger has gone missing or is out of range, has a low battery, the logger stopped, or there was an excursion on the alarm setting. So, you can set high-level alarms, low-level alarms, or you can also set a range where, as long as it's within, 2 temperature points, it's considered all clear. If it was to vary outside of those 2 points, you would receive that instantaneous notification letting you know there's been an excursion on that particular data logger. The gateway does need to be within 100 feet line of sight range from the Bluetooth logger. And the gateway connects to the Lycor cloud platform with either an Ethernet or Wi-Fi connection. If you are using Ethernet, you can power it via PoE, which just stands for Power over Ethernet. If you are using a Wi-Fi connection, you would need to plug it into a wall outlet using the supplied AC power supply. And this gateway is compatible with all of our MX data loggers. For larger areas, or if you have multi-floor, multi-story data centers, I recommend going with one of our RX remote monitoring stations with our HoboNet wireless sensors. So unlike the Bluetooth data loggers, which have 100 feet line of sight range between logger and gateway, our wireless sensors actually have utilize a 900 megahertz radio band frequency. So you'll get between 1,500 feet to 2,000 feet line of sight range from the sensor to the station itself. We do call this a self-healing wireless mesh technology. And essentially what that means is if a sensor can't communicate directly to the station, it can pass its signal through other sensors in line, making up to 5 hops to get that signal back to the station. The station itself does connect to our cloud utilizing a 4G cellular connection. And this setup is scalable and allows you to connect up to 50 of our wireless sensors to a single RX station. And all the data from those sensors is sent back to our Lycor cloud platform. The setup is easy to deploy. It is self-configurating with just a simple push of the button on the station and the sensor itself. That's how you pair the sensor to the station. And then it's just a matter of registering the station within Lycor Cloud by entering the serial number and device key. After the station makes its first connection, all the sensors that have been connected to it will populate in there. So no need to add the sensors in. They are smart sensors, so to speak. So when you connect them to the station, that data from that sensor is automatically uploaded to the cloud. So all your sensors will automatically populate there. By default, the sensor's name is the serial number for it, but this is a user-defined parameter. What I mean by that is that you can go ahead and change the name of the sensor from its serial number to something that's going to make sense for you. So, say you have multiple server rooms, you could name the sensor, server room 1, rack A, so on and so forth. So when you offload the data file, from the cloud, you'll know what data files correlate to what sensor. With our data files, there is metadata included with it. So it will include that name of that sensor that you had given into it when you offload that CSV or XLS file. Both the sensors and the station have onboard memory. This is to assure that there is no data loss. So how the sensors work is you can set up a logging interval where essentially, every 5 minutes or so, it'll take a reading and send it over to the station. For some reason, if a sensor was to lose communication with the station itself, it will keep that data stored locally on it. Once it reestablishes that connection with the station, it will do a batch upload of all that data from the sensor to the station. The RX station operates the same way. If for some reason you were to lose cellular connection, you can store upwards of 2 million measurements on the station. So if that cell connection is lost, it will store it locally. Once that connection is reestablished, it will do a batch upload of all that data to the cloud. So again, it assures that you're not going to lose any data, which is very important for compliance reasons. As mentioned, both our MX and RX devices, that data does get uploaded to our Lycor cloud software. So this essentially gives you 24/7 web access to your data. It allows you to verify that your RX station, HoboNet sensors are working. Same with the MX devices. This is where you go for our RX stations to manage your alarm notifications. So with the MX 1101, for example, you do need to download our free mobile app, and that when you're configuring the logger, that's where you set up your alarm parameters. It's a little different with our RX station. All that is done strictly through the cloud. So essentially what that means is if you want to change parameters for your alarms, you can do that remotely. With something like our Bluetooth data loggers, you would need to actually go to the site to change any of those alarm configurations. Within the cloud, you do have the ability to configure dashboards that highlight your most important measurements. And essentially within the dashboards, you can create multiple dashboards, and we have multiple widgets for those dashboards. So for larger data centers, again, you could break them out by room, by racks, and essentially add any sensor that is within a specific rack or within a specific server room. You can add it to its own dashboard, or you can apply it to a specific widget on a dashboard, whatever makes more sense to you and allows you to easily view your data. That is totally user-defined settings. So it's, again, you can set it up and customize it to whatever will best suit your needs. Another nice feature that we have within the cloud is we do have an integrated Google Maps. And what that does is, while we don't have GPS locations on our device, you can go to Google Maps, and if you're working in a large enough facility, essentially you can zoom in and you can drag and drop, your quote unquote sensors around your building. While it won't be the exact location, it's going to give you, it's going to get you pretty close to where you actually deployed those sensors. Another benefit to the Google Map feature is that, and I'm actually gonna, when we get close to the end of this presentation, I'm actually gonna open up my Lycor Cloud account, and I'll show you all this in real time. But within the map section, you do have the ability to see what the current readings are, and then also the signal path that the sensors are taking to get the signal back to the station. And again, with our self-healing mesh network with those wireless sensors, you'll see if any sensor is actually passing its signal along through another sensor in line, or if it's got a direct connection right to the station itself. So some common areas that you would possibly consider data logging in. I know a lot of times when we talk about data center monitoring, we talk about monitoring once the data center is up and running. A lot of times, data logging starts at the initial concept of building a data center, and this can even go as far back as construction of the center. So with our data loggers, essentially you'll be able to monitor your material while it's in storage. You know, a lot of times like flooring, walling, even electrical equipment, there's usually some type of guidelines that this material needs to be within this range to ensure that it's not going to get damaged. So that would allow you to keep track of that while it's in storage before it actually goes into the facility. It also allows you to do condition monitoring, so is the ambient room temperature what's the storage site said it was at? Is it actually at that, and has it maintained that temperature throughout its storage time? And then again, as I mentioned before, you do have access to real-time alerts. So, God forbid in the storage area, their HVAC system goes down and your temperatures or relative humidity start spiking. You can set those alarms where you can get notified if it starts to go outside that range, and, potentially save that material or equipment by moving it, to another location, or, bringing in some auxiliary HVAC equipment to help stay within environmental compliance. Next would be your storage site monitoring, which, again, this would more so be focused on storing of the servers and stuff and racks before they actually go in. And this applies the same as to construction site monitoring, where, you can set up these data loggers, set alarm thresholds, and be notified if conditions were to go outside of the ranges that you had set forth there. Again, this is critical, especially when you're storing electronic equipment. Keeping it within ASHRAE's guidelines is certainly not only going to ensure that it runs optimally, but also that it's going to expand the longevity of the life of the equipment. And again, this is where real-time alerts play a crucial role with this, where you can set those parameters, get notified if something was to start to travel outside of the range. So lastly, we would get into interior monitoring, which essentially would be monitoring the server rooms as well. So typically with data center monitorings, not only do you want to monitor the server rack temperature and potential relative humidity, it's also important to monitor the room temperature and relative humidity. Typically, best practice for ambient room temperature monitoring would be to place one where the thermostat is in the server room. Not only does this ensure that the temperatures set accurately, it also ensures that their HVAC system or your HVAC system is working correctly. And just as I mentioned before, but I really like to drill this home with data center monitorings, is that, you do get your real-time alerts. So when they're in the racks, you can set alarms to get those notifications remotely if they were to go outside of it. And one nice thing about our alarm notification feature is that each sensor's alarm is independent from each other. So, you may have, a sensor in just taking ambient room temperature. You can have a different threshold for that alarm versus one that's, actually inside the server rack. So, you can go through and customize your alarms as needed. So some best practices for ensuring optimal conditions. As I mentioned before, one of the best places to start is just doing your ambient temperature and relative humidity monitoring in the rooms. And by that, I would be placing a data logger or sensor by the room thermostat just for verification. Monitoring temperatures and relative humidity inside server racks to confirm that they are within the ASHRAE standards for your primary and backup locations. And then also, remotely monitoring conditions of equipment while it's in surge to ensure compliancy with the temporary specifications set forth by ASHRAE. So just to highlight some benefits of using data loggers for tracking temperature and relative humidity, and more so hobo data loggers, is a lot of times when these data centers just get up and running, your BAS or build-in automation system may not be fully operational yet. That's where our system, again, can really come into play, because you can actually make sure that, you know, everything is working as intended. And if something does go out of range, you can get those notifications for it. More importantly, when major electrical equipment, you know, high voltage terminations, bus bars are brought in, monitoring is critical of this equipment, as it is susceptible to oxidation if it is exposed to condensing environment or high relative humidity. So it is crucial that the contractor is alerted should the RH get too high. And again, that's where the alarm notifications are key. And with our product line, we are currently, well, I can't name names, we are currently working and selling to some of the largest general contractors, electrical contractors, and data center owners that are out there right now. So in case you're unfamiliar with ASHRAE standards for data centers, I did put together a quick slide here, just kind of outlining where you want to keep your temperature and humidity points for here. So as you can see, you know, they do have pretty narrow temperature ranges and relative humidity ranges for this, but following these guidelines, again, is going to ensure that your equipment runs optimally, and also that you will get the longevity of life out of this equipment. Again, it's going to reduce downtime if you're constantly having servers go down because, you know, temperature relative humidity is too high and it's causing premature failures. And you're constantly having to swap out those servers, you know, that's downtime, and downtime essentially leads to loss of revenue. So lastly, what we'll touch base on here is, you know, just some things to consider when you're choosing your solution. Do you need something that's just a data logger, or are you looking for a true IoT remote monitoring solution? You know, are alarm notifications going to be important for you? Typically with this type of application, the answer is yes. And then also, what is the length of your deployment? Is this something where you're just going to deploy, you know, temporarily, or is this something that you're going to consider as a permanent installation? Next would be, you know, is this a customer's facility? Would you have access to their internet, and or would you want to use their internet, or do you prefer use of a cellular device where you don't have to rely on their internet? One benefit to our cell stations is, you know, typically when you have a power outage, you're going to lose your internet. Unless there's some catastrophic event, typically if your power goes out, your cell phone still operates. So again, that's why I usually lean towards our cellular-based devices if monitoring is critical and you need that data and remote alarm no matter what. And then lastly, powering your devices, you know, do you have access to AC power? Or is this, do you need to rely on something that is battery powered? All of our devices do run off a battery. We do have a few options for data loggers that utilize both either battery or an AC wall outlet. And then lastly, sharing data or data access. Is this something where you're going to be solely responsible for, managing the data, or do you want to allow multiple parties to be able to access that data? All right, and then from there, let me just pause this and open up my cloud account here for you. Okay. So really quickly, actually, let me just jump back here. So how you access our cloud account is just go to Lycor.cloud. If you don't have an account yet, you would just do register your account. Essentially, it's a matter of creating a username, password, and then registering your devices. Once you do that, you can log into your account. And from here, the first place we come to is any device that is sending data to our cloud. So I use both some of our MX data loggers as well as our remote monitoring stations. But one nice feature about this is right when you click on your station, right down here, you get an overview of what the last readings were from each of the sensor that is connected to the cloud, connected to your station. So really easy, convenient way just to get a high level overview of what's currently going on. Next, we had discussed about dashboards. So again, these are all user defined. And to create a dashboard is simply just selecting add dashboard. We can do, we'll just create this test 4, then we can do create. And then from here, we would choose, what type of widgets do we want to include on here? Just to keep it simple, we can go ahead and just choose latest conditions, which essentially is going to be text data for you. So there's a few ways you can actually create dashboards. You can either go to a device name. So, is it your weather station or any other MX devices you have going to there, or you can do it by measurement. So I usually like to choose, temperature, and we can do relative humidity as well. And then any device, regardless if it's an RX sensor or MX device that's sending data to the cloud over the over through a gateway, it populates here. So, we can just choose a couple of these. And then if we have save widget, now it's going to give you what the readings were, what the time was, and then what the sensor name is. As I had mentioned before, you can name the sensors by something that's going to make more sense to you, but it also references what the serial number is for it as well. So really, really convenient for setting up dashboards. And again, you can set these up. You can add multiple widgets to one dashboard, or you can just create a dashboard with only one widget on it. Again, whatever makes more sense to you. And then for just to touch base really quickly on our alarm setups. That's done in our configuration page. So you just choose alarms. So system alarms would be, did the station miss a connection? Did a sensor not report in when it should have? Is the battery low? Things like that. Custom alarms are your user-defined alarms where you actually set the thresholds. So you just simply create new alarm. You can name the alarm name. So let's say high temp. And then we'll just go ahead and let's just choose this temperature one. Now, this is where you get to choose what type of alarm you want. And you can do above. So if it goes above a certain range, below a certain range, or outside a range. I usually like to use outside ranges because it allows you to both have a low limit and a high limit. So from there, you can set, let's just say, according to the ASHRAE standards, if it goes below 64 or above 80 degrees, you'll receive that alarm limit. So let's just set that like that. And then log data points. So with our RX stations, you can log data as fast as every 5 minutes. Now, sometimes there may be instances where, maybe you have an environmentally controlled room, but someone left the door open, so the temperature's slowly raising in there. You can set how many data points it records before it actually triggers that alarm. That way, it just allows you so you don't get false alarms if you wanted to. At the very least, you would just have to choose one data point. So that means at the logging interval, if it detects that it's outside of that range, it's going to send out that alarm. And one important thing I did want to mention about alarms is that those are based on the logging interval, not the connection interval to the cloud. So there's two parameters you need to set up. The logging interval, i.e. how often is the sensor going to take a reading, and then the connection interval, i.e. how often is it going to update that data to the cloud. Some people don't need data that's always sent, up every 10 minutes. That's the fastest it can send data to the cloud. They may just want that data to be updated on an hourly basis, but they want to receive that alarm, if there is to be an excursion. So with our alarms, it's actually sent out on the logging interval, not the connection interval. So if you have a 5-minute logging interval, hourly connection to the cloud, at that 5-minute interval, if it detects it's outside of that range for the alarm, it's going to send you that instantaneous notification. And again, you can have those notifications sent out to multiple people. And again, you can choose SMS or email. And these you can toggle off and on. So when you turn them on, you can keep adding phone numbers or email addresses to people that are going to receive that. And then again, you can have give a notification content, so information about this. You can say server 1 temperature outside of range. So when you get that alarm, that's what's going to pop up on there for you. All right, and then, so let's just cancel this. Yes, I'm sure. And okay, where was, so we actually had oh, there it is. So here's our map view, which you just a matter of just selecting the maps over here, and let's see, we'll do RX 3000. All right, so when you choose your map, it's going to zoom right in on here. So you can see where the weather station is, and I haven't configured this up yet, but you can actually enter edit mode, where what this means is now you can drag around where the station's located, where the sensors are, and I believe you can also view this in like satellite mode. Let's see here. No. Yes. So again, while this is my house here, you may have a large facility. So again, you could go ahead and grab your sensors, drop them around your facility, so you'd be able to see, roughly where they're located within that center or storage area. And that was a ton of information I threw out there. So what I'm going to do is just take a quick pause here, and let me get the presentation back up. Okay, now let me just go ahead and open the question section and see if we had any questions asked here. Okay. Okay, let me just pop this out. Oops. Okay. So we did have a question. What is the battery cost and process to exchange the batteries in the Hobo? So with our data loggers, the MX devices and the sensors for the RX station, those are user replaceable batteries. So you're going to get about a year's life out of those batteries before you would need to replace them. But again, that is something that you can do right at your home. You don't need to send it back into us or anything like that. What is the most economical solution Hobo offers for measuring water pipe temperature, room temp, and relative humidity? Something like that, I would recommend going with our MX devices if you don't actually need remote access to the data. I would suggest taking a look at our MX1104 and MX1105. The MX1104 has a built-in temperature, relative humidity, and light sensor. There's also a 4th channel, which will allow you to plug in one of our pipe temp sensors for monitoring your water pipes. The MX1105 is a 4-channel analog data logger, so you can connect up to 4 sensors to it to take temperature readings as well. You spoke of the name of the mobile app. Oh, I apologize. So the name of the app you'd use for our Bluetooth loggers is called Hobo Connect, and that is a free download you can find in either the Google Play or Apple App Store. Okay, let me see here. How often do loggers need to be calibrated? So one nice thing about our data loggers is that they are built with precision components. So essentially they don't need to be recalibrated. They come calibrated right out of the box. We do offer NIST certifications, which essentially gets you a traceable certificate showing that the device is within its accuracy range. All electronic devices do drift over time, but it's a minor drift. So I would, anticipate as long as you're using them within their intended design, you should get 10 plus years out of these sensors and loggers before they would need to be replaced. Again, since they're built with precision parts, while you don't have to have them calibrated yearly, if they do go outside of spec, there's no way to adjust that calibration. You would need to purchase a new sensor for it. Okay. Could you please tell us the cost of the batteries for one data logger? Again, they're just AA or AAA batteries that you use. You can pick them up at a, any store that sells batteries, CVS, Walmart, Target, places like that. Okay, your temp and RH sensors for the RX devices are wireless. Do your current voltage sensors have wireless capabilities? We did recently just come out. Okay, so someone's asking about if we have ability to do voltage and current monitoring with wireless sensors. We did just come out recently with what we call an analog moat. So what it allows you to do is connect up to 4 third-party sensors to one moat. You can think of the moat as a wireless sensor that doesn't have any sensors built into it. So that would allow you to connect voltage sensors and current sensors to it to have a truly wireless voltage and current monitoring setup. Okay. Someone was asking for the data tab. So with the data tab, what that is it's essentially where you go to generate reports. It takes a while. I don't want to say it takes a while, but it actually, once you query a report, it does email you along a CSV or XLS file. It does take a couple minutes for it to generate that, but essentially you're going to get that in Excel format. And with the way it's laid out is it's very simplistic and easy to read. So essentially it is going to be within that report, you'll have the device name, you'll have the time and date stamp for that sensor or device, and what the measurement was at the time that it took it. And again, it looks just like a standard Excel document. One nice feature about our reports is that we have 2 different reports. There's a data export where essentially you can just queue a one-off report. If you need reports, on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly schedule, you can set it up where you essentially get these reports sent to you automatically with the sensors included in that report that you choose on a schedule of your choosing. So if you want to report every Monday morning at 8 a.m. for the sensor for the information that was recorded from the prior week, you can set it up for that. And every Monday morning when you come in, that data report will already be included in your inbox, ready for your review. So we did run a little bit over right here. I appreciate you taking the time to view the presentation with me today. My contact information is up here. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions or concerns. If there's any specific questions that you have that wasn't addressed, again, during the presentation, feel free to reach out to me directly and I'll be more than happy to answer those for you. Once again, we appreciate you taking the time to view Hobo Data Loggers and look forward to seeing you again in the near future.